downstairs for the panelists. Well, I asked, and the moderator is included. All right. Good morning. Welcome to our second Veterans in Politics International candidate interview today. At this hour, we're taking a look at County Commission District C, for which there are 3 candidates. Larry Brown is the incumbent. Gary Hosea is here, and no third candidate yet. So we will hold off on his announcement until he arrives. I'd like to remind our moderators that we'd like you to introduce yourself at the beginning of your question. You're asking a question, not making a statement. You must do so within 30 seconds. We would ask our candidates to take 60 seconds and no more to respond to each question. Each of you will have a chance to respond to each question. Let's kick it off this time at the other end. Fred Conquest, are you prepared?
Yep.
I didn't give you any warning.
Okay. Thank you. Fred Conquest, Citizens for a Better America. A question for all 3 of the candidates. Yes. How can we combat corruption in essentially the political Fred Conquest, Citizens for a Better America. How can we combat the political corruption of voter fraud, etc., when it comes to the commission, because they have so much money to allocate to expenses? And what it seems to me is that the same law firms are on either side of the game. What would be your solution to minimizing some of the political corruption that is in the county?
Well, I think the first thing is to be honest and ethical in government when you're running. In 2008, Ken stated that he was going to do the job full time, and that is not the case today. When I first ran, I ran in a different district. I stated I would do the job full time. That is one thing that I would do full time, is I would run and keep my eye on the ball. As far as accepting money from different organizations and stuff, as Chairman Sisolak has mentioned, you're always going to have a lot of money if you're in office at that time. That doesn't mean that you're going to garner favor, and it shouldn't mean you're going to garner favor with that company or person. You need to be honest and ethical yourself, otherwise you need not run.
Next candidate.
I think it. Is your mic on? I think it starts with the individual, be it a candidate or an incumbent. I mean, if you're susceptible to corruption, if you're susceptible to anything on the wrong side of ethics, you got that going against you going in. I think so. It's the integrity of the person going in is going to be the big differential on whether that person is going to become corrupt or be corruptible. Money is an issue. At the local level, I think we have a pretty good system in place as far as tracking the money. We don't do super PACs. We don't, every donation is attributable to an individual, whether it's $500, $5, or $5,000. That's a pretty good protection. The disclosure laws at the local level are pretty good. As far as when we have to, it's almost, right now, during the campaign, it's 5 times during the campaign season. And even in the off years, you have to do 2 reports on an annual basis. So at the local level, I think Clark County and the state of Nevada have a good system in place. But if a person is going to try to beat the system, they're going to try to beat the system. So I go back to the original answer is it's the integrity of the candidate. If you are going in for the right reasons, then you will avoid those temptations and avoid those issues that are going to bring you into the corrupt side.
Rob Lauer. I have a friend who was violently assaulted by an illegal alien. They were arrested, the illegal alien was arrested here in Clark County. It's in the charge of battery with strangulation. And he was released on bail at 10 p.m. Sunday. Why are we still a sanctuary county?
Could you repeat the last part?
Why is Clark County still a sanctuary county? Why are we releasing illegal aliens back in our community that are charged with violent crimes and not turned over to ICE?
Well, we shouldn't be doing that. Metro, certainly Metro's responsibility, and Metro's who we govern, their responsibility is to take the law and put people in jail. Where that transition from jail to the federal agency, that's where I think the missing link is. We have to have a far more active role from the federal level in taking those that have been identified as violating the law in Clark County and immediately not releasing them back into our community, putting them into the federal system and having them deal with it. We do not have, at the local level, both financially and from a resource standpoint, we at Metro and the county do not have the ability to take that violation and criminal all the way through the system. It would be impossible. So fix the missing link, which is transitioning from the local to the federal level.
Will Crespo. I have two questions. The first one is, the same one as the county commissioner. What kind of incentives are you putting forward to get more veterans to apply for public employment with your city or with your county? And also, what are you doing to ensure that the county's public employees mirror the racial lines or the demographics of your community or the district that you're representing?
I think as far as the first part, the incentives for veterans and hiring and finding jobs, we have in our human resource department an incentive simply that hiring a veteran puts someone on a priority list. Now they certainly still have to meet all the minimums, things like that, but all things equal, a veteran will have a priority hiring status coming into the system. And further, when we take it out of the public system into the private sector, we have worked extremely well and closely with a lot of our trades in Southern Nevada, our labor groups, and we have encouraged them not only to hire veterans, and they're very aggressive in that area also, but in all our public works, especially right now our big transportation initiative, the fuel revenue, we have an emphasis and even a priority on local hiring. And that has, there's never been as much of a push on the local level as this campaign that's going on now. And the results have been outstanding. Not only hiring local labor, but hiring veterans, hiring minority-owned business workers. So that, it starts at the top, because although there are some federal laws and state laws as far as mandatory hiring, there are certainly ways you can, from a policy standpoint, emphasize, very strongly emphasize that this is our priority hiring.
Ms. Rose, anything to add?
No, the one thing I would add is the county can be more helpful in maybe having classes that translate your military language into the actual job description. Right now, there isn't a push. When you get out of the military, you have a certain level of language or semantics that transfer into what the county is wanting as far as your job. Your job generally in the military is probably more than the county, but you don't know how to express it. So they should have classes or something like that for the military work. And some organizations, like Catholic Veterans, does have that in the city and county, but it's not
Glenn Connell, this question is for both of you. Estimates, and don't get me specific on this, but I believe that the average public sector employee in Nevada makes a third again as much as the average private sector employee, and that's despite the fact that we've been in years of a recession. We have police and firemen and other public officials that are using competitive compensation schemes, similar to the ones that we use on Wall Street and corporate America to draw $1 million paychecks from the government at the time when taxpayers are taxed to death and having all kinds of problems. So my question is, what can you do and what do you plan to do to bring compensation back to a fair level and to prevent these abuses from happening within the Nevada public payroll system?
Let's go first. Do we rotate going first? I don't care. It doesn't matter.
Speak into the microphone, please.
I was just asking, are we going to rotate responding first? First of all, the premise. There's no question that the public employees in our state are some of the highest paid public employees nationwide. On the flip side of that coin, and this is something that is often left out of the discussion, our public employees from a ratio standpoint are some of the lowest ratios per capita in the country. So there's a little bit of a balance there. And that goes back 30 years when they were recruiting people to work in the desert. I think the most important thing as far as the public employee's salary is trying to get rid of some of the antiquated benefits. For example, longevity. We have been on a 6-year negotiation with just about all our labor unions to get rid of longevity, which 30 years ago, 40 years ago was an incentive, now is just an extra paycheck. And that has been successful in all but one of the unions. And it works well because it's not taking away from any existing employee. It's creating a future system without longevity, which in the example of police and fire, over the 30-year window of a normal hire would save the county alone upwards of $30 to $35 million, and that's just those two groups. So you go in and you take a look at the elements of negotiation over the past 15, 20 years and identify those that are really antiquated, that should be taken out of the system, and try to get rid of this, well, people at the LBCBA get paid this, so the county should pay them that, the city pays them that, Henderson pays them that. That has been a thorn in the side of fairness and equity, because the arbitration and the courts have said, well, if you're paying that same employee in Henderson, why shouldn't you pay them in county? And it's not a fair comparison. You have to, the revenue streams are differently. So that's another thing that we have to look at as far as what do we really compare it to? The value of the job or what someone's making in another municipality?
I think one of the things that was brought up in Chairman Sislak is we need to look at the tax structure and where the money's going and hire the best employees. And one thing that happened recently was Mayor Goodman, Mayor Leeds had talked about maybe consolidation of governments. That's one thing that we need to do as a county is seriously look at rather than talk about it, consolidating government so that the taxpayer gets the most bang for the buck. Whether employees pay a little bit higher, yes, they've recently gotten rid of the overtime pay for some people, and they've also lessened overtime pay for people, but they've also cut out the longevity pay. And I think longevity pay should have been cut out for the average employee, because all it's doing is increasing more money that the county has to pay out and also taxes. We need to look at ways to save money and help government be more efficient, run more efficiently, rather than the way it is now. We also have supervisors that don't really, once you get in the county, you're in the county. You can do, once you get your name in the county, you're supposed to do a certain amount of time in your job. And you're supposed to get a counseling statement telling you how you're doing your job. That isn't happening. And we need to from the county manager who's wasted millions and millions of dollars all the way down to the bottom line employee. And we need to ask the lowest employees how to improve government from the bottom up, and then we'll be able to save money.
I would like to remind the candidates to keep your responses within 60 seconds and the panelists to keep your question within 30. Mr. Luke?
I'm sorry, Bob, but I haven't been able to say hello in 30 seconds in many years now. But I will make the effort. Thank you. Robert Luke. This is for both of you. I'm a 42-year resident of Clark County, and there's one thing I've noticed, that whenever somebody's working on a road project or a highway project, I think you folks also give them like a 6-month supply of Valium, because they seem to take forever to do these jobs. We see cones up and streets blocked off, lanes blocked off, and nobody's working, or you got 6 guys working, and then they might come back in a week or 2 or something. But, you know, what can you do to make sure these projects get more efficient? There's a lot of businesses that have been hurt by being, their customers have been kept away from their places.
Gary Hosea, one thing I would do would be have an office of metrics and look at how long jobs are supposed to take and how long they're actually taking, because it has been hurting local businesses. Down in Decatur, on Gus, different streets, there's a lot of, Rampart was another example. Rampart Boulevard, all the way from Suncoast to Cheyenne. There's a lot of traffic, a lot of congestion. Cones would be up one day, or they'd just be sitting up, and the person putting them up didn't want to take them down, they just leave them up. That needs to be addressed and looked at so that we have better roads and better transportation.
No question, recently, those orange cones have been as prolific as we've seen in the past 42 years you've been here. And that's partly because of the recession. During that 4-year window, there was literally nothing done as far as infrastructure investment. So we had a 4-year gap. Coming out of the recession, from the transportation side, we had the fuel revenue indexing, which is generating over 200 projects. So you had nothing, and we're accelerating now, and that's why you see so much activity. Now, certainly, it's not only roads. It's sewer, it's water, it's flood control, it's Southwest Gas, it's Net Energy, all this coming together. To your point, we have to do a better job to collaborate. And there's a coordination committee that's been in existence for 30 years that over the last 6 months has been brought together and re-energized with technology and GPS mapping and everything. We have to be able to do a better job on collaborating and coordinating. The secret also is on the front end of these contracts, as Gary mentioned, the scope of the work has to be clearly defined. If it's night work, then take the cones back, free up a lane. So the scope of the work of contracts has to be improved and the collaboration has to be improved. But understand that infrastructure investment, we're playing catch up, and behind every cone, there's a lot of employment being generated out there, and for thousands of new jobs. A little patience, take that frustration, get it to the Seeing Orange campaign, and we'll get you some answers.
My mom always said that we just don't have any place to store all the orange cones. I'm hopeful that with this new NFL stadium.
Or if your mom has identified a street that isn't torn up, let us know.
Tellis Napper.
Hello, my name is Tellis Napper, and I'm a DJ and radio talk show host for Music Medication. I've been here for about 5 years, and it just seems like I've seen more cones here than, it's just unbelievable to piggyback off his question. But my question is, why does it seem like the city and state are more focused on road improvement than education? And is your road improvement spending budget more than your education spending budget?
Well, we're focused on roads because what you see being done out there is county public works, city public works, RTC. That's our role. We do not, by statute, get involved on the education side as far as funding. that is primarily a state function. So you're mixing the two, where NDOT is the state transportation. Likewise, their budget is solely and restricted to the streets and highways. The education budget statewide is far greater than the infrastructure capital investment budget by tens of millions, if not more. I don't have the numbers. So we don't have the ability to take our transportation dollars, capital dollars, and build schools or fund higher salaries for teachers. Just can't by statute. That's completely separate, and that's a state responsibility.
Candidates will be, whoops.
We need to get you closer to the microphone when you speak.
Gotta be about an inch away.
Mr. Hosea?
One thing we don't have, as Larry had mentioned, Commissioner Brown had mentioned, we don't have the resources to go into the education and do that. But as the county commission, most people don't realize is a part-time job. Unlike the city council of Las Vegas, where they've actually made it a full-time occupation, which it should be. But we can go into the classrooms and teach educational classes and be out there in the community, such as Lawrence Weekly has done with various programs like he has done, to try to increase the education and help the parent along and find better paying jobs so that people aren't working 2, 3, 4 jobs just to make ends meet in our local economy, so that they can be home for their child, so that they can nurture them to do well in school, because education is key. I have 3 college degrees, so therefore I believe in education, but at the same time we need better roads and infrastructure, such as in 2008, I had mentioned the monorail, making it go all the way around 215, or having light rail, because we need good roads and streets so we can get our people in here and get visitors in here and show them what Las Vegas is about. That way we can increase jobs, increase revenue, so that it's not all being held by people that live in Las Vegas.
Thank you. Mr. Patera?
So I'm Tim Patara. My question's for Mr. Hosea. Looking at your website, I found something that was kind of interesting. On your website, it says, and I quote, "In all contracts with government, we need to promote Nevadans First policy." So given that, shouldn't it be, I understand the concept of keeping money locally and helping your own people, but should it be the lowest bidder? Because from my understanding, you're using tax dollars to fund these projects. So wouldn't your one priority be to save the taxpayer who's ultimately footing the bill for whatever service you're trying to enact?
That if you look at my website is a little bit outdated and is being updated as we speak. But at the same time, yes, we need to hire the lowest bidder, but it should be primarily from a Nevada corporation. Let's keep the jobs and the money in Nevada. And generally it has been Nevada, when we went out for low bids, it has been Nevada people. Recently there was one bid with Las Vegas Paving going against Fisher Corporation that was not the lowest bid, and we ended up, the county government paid Fisher $umpteen-thousand for doing no work at all, just so that they could give the job to Las Vegas Paving. We need to look at that and determine who the lowest paying bidder is, but we need to hire Nevadans first. We need to keep the money here, and that way we keep our tax base better.
Thank you.
The statute reads low, responsive, and responsible bidder. So it's very rarely that, unless there's a technical error, mathematical, or something in the company's background that would rise to the level of disqualification, that's the way our state statute's set up. The emphasis, again, and it's an emphasis, on a county commissioner level, on a city council level, is to promote local companies hiring local workers. That has been very successful, and it's a fine line. because we talked earlier about ethics. It's a fine line how far you can push a project to mandate local hiring. So right now we have a very comfortable work environment out there because we're seeing probably more local workers hired than ever before. But a word of caution, as we recover and as the infrastructure investment grows and as the economy grows, you watch those out-of-state license plates come back to town. And there's very little we can do legally to stop them, other than to make sure the trades get all our workers trained, that we have the appropriate workforce, because if it's here, we can do it and save money. But if we can't supply the workers that are needed, that's when the out-of-state license plates start showing up.
Thank you.
Hello, Daphne Lee here. My question is for Commissioner Brown. I read recently a couple of interesting headlines that said that the Las Vegas Municipal Court collected over $130 million, which is roughly 89% of its revenue, from traffic violations over the last 5 years. And the Nevada Supreme Court, I guess, is also decrying that they are impending financial crisis because they too rely on essentially traffic tickets as a source of revenue. Coupling that with Lombardo's recent statement, because violent crime here in Las Vegas has gone up 22%, which we all know is very interesting to see all these home invasions and homicide rates and everything go up. He said that it was because Prop 47 in California, due to overcrowding in prisons, has released a bunch of non-violent, low drug offenders. That's the reason he gave as to why. Okay, sorry, that's a lot of information. My point is, how do we ensure that Metro, with the resources that they have, are not inadvertently directed towards revenue generating for the courts and the government function, and instead are able to allocate their resources properly in order to protect and serve the community? Because it seems like that's probably a tough thing to balance. How do you as a commissioner kind of make sure that's going on and they're focusing on the proper thing that they need to be focusing on?
Well, and just to clarify, you talked about the municipal courts and their traffic czar and some of the things to do in the city of Las Vegas. We don't have anything to do with that. But I think specifically to your question, right now, and it doesn't take rocket scientists to figure out, if you look back in 07, 08, when our crime rate was the lowest it had been in decades, and our officer per thousand number was over 2, it's 2.04. Through the recession, we are down now to 1.73, 1.74, and if you look at the graph, it's just flipped. Crime is higher than it's been in 15 years. It's the presence of officers on the street. The ability to put officers into the neighborhoods on the community officer programs. We need to have visibility not only on the strip and downtown to protect tourists, but through every neighborhood in the county city areas. And it's the resources. It's not, Metro doesn't cite tickets to generate revenue for their budget. That's a fallacy. There's probably some connection there, but we need to find a sustainable funding source to not only hire more officers today, but over the next decade or 20 years or longer. Because if we don't hire an officer, and I'll be quick, well, you don't turn on the switch and raise it up back to two officers per thousand. It takes close to 16 to 18 months before you get an academy recruit independent officer on the street. And as the attrition each year, so we're playing catch up with filling existing positions and trying to build the police force back up to where it was pre-recession. And that takes a sustainable funding source, which will be back in Carson City in 17, trying to find a way, competing against education and everything.
Thank you.
Mr. Rosette?
I too believe that we need to fund more officers. At the same time, we need to create, as Chairman Sisolak said, and in my new website that I'm putting out, will say that we need to have officers respond to like accidents versus crime. We need to have our sworn officers go to the crimes and have unsworn officers maybe help out at accident scenes and stuff like that. We need to balance a little bit more and increase our police force and first responders and look at our resources better. The county has been wasting millions and millions of dollars at UMC. I know everybody loves UMC, and I like it too, but for the last 8 years, we've been pumping in $80 million average each year to UMC. My idea 8 years ago was to make it a VA hospital to improve our veterans' care, at the same time still have care for the county, and that way we would have federal dollars coming in to help alleviate some of that cost of that $80 million that's coming out of taxpayers, so that we could have more cops on the street. We have to think outside the box.
Thank you.
Mr. Faust?
My name is Robert Faust. I have a big voice, I guess. First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Brown for his long, distinguished career on the county commission. He's done a fine job. My question is, what are we going to do about Cashman Field?
Okay, we've got to bring up the ethics question earlier. I work for the baseball team. I have for 15 years because despite what some people may feel, I've always had a second job. So I have to be careful in responding. Because as a county commissioner, I'm not allowed to talk to those kind of people over here at the elected level. Here's the situation. There's a potential for a win-win-win. The city, and the baseball team wants to relocate because Cashman is old, 33 years. The city would receive 55 acres of prime real estate, and for them to do whatever they wish to do with it.
From the county.
From the Convention Authority, which currently owns and operates. The Convention Authority wants out because they lose about $5.5 million a year keeping the doors open in Cashman. Their focus is on their $1.5 billion expansion of the convention center over the next decade. So they want out, and the ball team wants out. So we're looking for a new location where we can get out, get the city the land, get the authority out of that $5.5 million, and hopefully find a scenario that a new stadium could be built. A couple of locations. I think I'm okay there, Mr. Beers. I was not addressing my answers to you.
If you're not, I won't hold it against you. Mr. Jose, please.
I'll navigate it, Mr. Brown. Gary?
I think we need a new stadium. I'm not sure of the location. The people would have to decide that, as would economics of the situation. Cashman is antiquity. We need something for a major sports stadium. Venetian has proposed a stadium on the campus of UNLV. Maybe that could be baseball and softball like San Diego is. Who knows? Right now, we need something to improve Cashman Field.
So what happens to Cashman Field after the stars of the 51s move?
With the city's long-range planning for downtown, Mr. Beers could probably answer this better, but to be in receivership of, other than demolishing the existing facility, being in receivership of 55 acres, quarter mile from the downtown Fremont core, not many cities can boast that. Now, as far as the vision, what should go there, that's going to be left up to the leadership of the city and the private sector. But you don't find 55 acres that close to a downtown core in too many cities around the country.
And you're talking about the property that the stadium sits on now?
Yes.
Plus, we have a little land at Symphony Park we can sell you, too. Thank you. Ms. Lake?
Hello, Commissioner Cindy Lake and Mr. Hosea. Thanks for taking time today. I had a couple of questions. I'll make them brief. Actually, I did see you there at the game last week, the Mets versus Cubs, and I was going to ask you if you're supporting the Mets or the Cubs, first and foremost. Secondly, I ran for county commission in 2014, and one of my platforms was, one of my pet peeves is the Republic Services reducing pickup to 1 time per week, and my bill is the same as it was when my trash pickup was twice a week. Did you vote for that change to the contract Commissioner Brown? I'm not sure. And, and one more thing, a suggestion was to consider reducing public salaries to $100,000 per year and take that money and hire more cops. So would you consider doing that? Thank you.
Let me take the first one up, and I think we're talking about the recycling program that we've adopted. It's not throughout the county, but it's going to be over the next few years. I did support it, and I supported it for a couple reasons. One is the pilot programs that were done in parts of unincorporated county and the city of Las Vegas. The numbers were coming back, surveys of the users were coming back at a 90% acceptance rate. The push to recycle, and there's a whole another debate whether that's the right thing to be doing. But we're not eliminating the number of stops Republic Services will make in the county. We're just changing the mix from 2 times a week garbage to 1 time a week garbage, 1 time a week recycle. But they'll still have currently, we don't have the recycling program yet. Currently we have 10 stops from Republic. Those 10 stops per month are not going to change. It's the dynamic of what they're picking up is going to. Now, the bigger question, which one of my colleagues brought up, is, well, wait a second, they're making millions of dollars. They should be cutting our monthly rate. Well, our monthly service charge with Republic is one of the lowest in the entire Southwest, if not the nation. So we are getting outstanding service, and we'll find out 5, 10, 15 years whether this push to recycle has been the appropriate move. But I supported it because the customers were enjoying it, the service levels were staying the same, and the price was staying the same.
Okay, thank you.
I would have supported it as well because we need to reduce recyclables going to landfills. There's just too much pollution. All the scientists can't be wrong about global warming and this type of thing. The trouble is that we have communities such as the one I live in that some of the people only have 1-car garages, and it's very hard to find space to put the recyclable trash can that they want you to have and the non-recyclable trash can in your garage out of view, because the CCRs say you have to have your trash cans out of view except for on trash day. So something in the law, the state law, has to change to alleviate that problem.
Thank you. Real quick, to attend to that, did Republic Services donate to your campaign, and has Republic Services donated to yours?
Yes.
No.
Thank you.
Mr. Lafata.
Hi there, I'm Scott Lafata, and I'm with Conservatives for Energy Freedom. I'm the state director. I'm going to address 2 different questions. Larry, I'm going to ask you this question first because it's near and dear to my heart. Today, we drive on these certain streets in the county that are outside the Las Vegas area. For instance, Fort Apache, and the speed limit is 45 miles an hour. But did you know there's many people driving between 40, 60, and 65 miles an hour? Would you support a lower speed limit? Would the county commission entertain a lower speed limit on those certain streets to help save lives?
I would, and right now there's a dialogue going on between the RTC and NDOT and our member agencies on arterials now. Let's Fort Apache. Traditionally, we build our arterials 4 to 6 lanes of travel, throw up 45 miles an hour, and get cars from point A to point B as quickly as possible. We're studying now the reduction of speeds from 45 to 35 on the arterials, and future arterials are being designed to a complete street standard, which reduces 6 to 4, builds better pedestrian safety areas. Now, I say that dialogue is going on because the statistics have not been brought forward, but we are looking specifically at that issue from 45 now to 35. And as far as just timing, you lose, I think you lose a matter of 6 or 7 seconds every mile. It's some ridiculously low number that you're losing as far as time. But It's one of those things that we've always done it that way, and we have to change the way we look at it.
Okay, great, thank you. Gary, I've got a different question for you. This comes from the students in the at CSN, and they wanted me to ask, what is your plan to lessen the amount of homeless veterans in the county?
One of my first plans would be something that our county commission has not addressed, is if you go to the Clark County website and you look at departments, there is a homeless department there with no phone number. That is unacceptable. And that's one of the first things I would change. I would look at having an office of metrics to enhance contracts and stuff like that, and move some people around rather than lay them off, to have an office of homeless veterans in the county. We need to get the veterans and others homeless off the streets and into shelters at least, and work with mental health professionals to best we can to keep them from flooding UMC and other hospitals in the county to reduce the cost. That's one of the first things I would do, is attach a phone number and a name to that office rather than leave it blank like Commissioner Brown and the other commissioners have done.
Okay, Gary, thank you.
And Mr. Jonas?
Good morning to you both. Thank you very much for coming here on this Sunday morning. This question is specifically for Mr. Hosea. I'm not going to pose it to Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown has a resume that's already out there for the voters. Mr. Hosea, this question is specifically for you. What makes you qualified to sit on the most powerful board in the state of Nevada?
I have a bachelor's degree from the University of Maryland, a master's in management from Webster University, and a master's in theology from Southern Methodist University. I've worked with local companies here to go before the city council to obtain beer and wine licenses. I've run a business before. I've taught college. I believe I'm better qualified than my opponent to actually sit on this commission. Otherwise, I would not have run in 2008 against Tom Collins, and now I'm running against Larry Brown, who made the statement in 2008 in the Review Journal. I will do the job full-time for the people. He is not, as he stated, not doing the job full-time. I believe my ethics are a little bit higher than Mr. Brown, and I don't believe I'm entitled to the position, but I will work with the people to do the best job I can to handle the taxes and to improve county government, where the current commission has really not done anything to improve the county government. Right now, as a county employee, there is no incentive program. There is no pat on the back periodically. Your supervisors, they hire people and put people in positions, and there's no recourse. We need people, we need accountability. That's what we need. And I'm accountable and will be accountable to the people. If I say I'm going to do the job full time, I'm going to do the job full time.
Okay then.
I think this is dying, so I'm just
If,
going to
that's okay. Mr. Beers, if I may, just to clarify for the record, since this is being taped, when I ran in one city council, I made the same statement that I would make this a full-time job, which all I have to do is check the records. It was a full-time job. At the county, although Mr. Hosea says it's a part-time job, you can call it whatever you want, but I would venture to say that most weeks I am working either at the government center or on county commission business for 40 hours or more on just about every week, and meeting weeks even more so. Whatever you call the part-time role, I want the record to clearly state that I have been a full-time county commissioner.
Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us here today. My name is Karen Stillman. I'm the Auxiliary Director with Veterans in Politics International. Thank you for allowing us to scrutinize you so publicly. the subject came up with Commissioner Sisolak, and I'd like to bring it up with both of you gentlemen, and I'd like you both to address the issue. The first question was the thought of scrapping the entire tax structure and reconstructing it to get rid of whatever problems are in it. So I was wondering if either of you had thought about that, and if you had any thoughts on scrapping the spending structure and reconstructing that. Mr. Brown, go ahead.
I would love to scrap a lot of things, two of which you brought up. That would happen at the state level, and in defense of our legislature, I'll say this, that we ask our citizens to go up there every 2 years, limit them to 120 days, and have them solve challenges to government that have never existed before, that have been built up over 30 years. So it'd be nice to say, to try to restructure everything, but you're asking the impossible under the current structure of state government. What I would like to see is a streamlining of revenue sources. For example, right now, the LVCVA and the room tax, they certainly taken a good percentage of those room tax, but it goes to school district, it goes to parks, it goes to all different things. When we, at Metro, when we have a forfeiture fund that Metro seizes it, that money, I've always felt should go back into Metro and hire more costs. A lot of that goes to the school district and spread out. So you have all these revenue streams being diminished and diluted by sending to other public agencies that there's no real nexus. If we could focus on that key issue as far as who's generating the revenue and how the revenue is being spent, if we could bring some clarity and some more common sense to that whole aspect, I think that's a chewable bite to your bigger question, can we scrap it all?
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Hosea?
I think that, as Commissioner Brown stated, that we need to look at the revenue streams as far as state government goes, and also it would help out local government. But at the same time, we need to look at, in the community, with other municipalities, possibly consolidation of services to assist the taxpayer and stop overspending, such as communications department in Clark County itself. Why not have a communications department, one communications department for all of Clark County, so that Clark County doesn't speak out of 6 sides of its mouth? Every little department, family youth services, has their own communications person. RTC has theirs. Public Works has theirs. We need to consolidate and reduce jobs and reduce spending, and look at better ways of managing our money.
Thank you.
One final question will come from our guest questioner, who is in the 9th grade, so go easy on him, candidates. No, actually, I'm kidding. He's not going to go easy on you. I've heard him question before. So.
Hello, my name is David Suazo, and I am a homeschooler in the 9th grade. And I would like to ask, I'm pretty sure you guys know already that our school system is almost 50th in the country. And the more and more we spend, it seems like it keeps on getting worse. So I would like to ask, what are you going to do to reduce spending in the Clark County School District?
David, it's a tough one because we at the county commission don't control that budget. That is approved at the state and goes directly to the Clark County School District Board of Trustees. It's almost entirely independent from our revenue and our budget. So, and I don't want to avoid the question, but we can't. We can't go in and tell the school district or the state how to spend those school district dollars.
Okay, sir.
One thing I would look at is not reducing the school budget, but looking at ways that we fund schools now within, when we have a developer come in, how much land or what are they paying for is putting new schools in there, and how long of time before that school is going to be antiquated and the services it is that is. Also, as a commissioner, it is a part-time job. It's labeled as a part-time job. Commissioner could be in there teaching an education class sometimes, periodically getting involved. Another thing is using the media, which is this as part of Veterans in Politics as part of, is showing the waste and stuff, just as in there's waste and fraud in the county commission, there's waste and fraud in our school system. When I see a person driving from a club at 1 o'clock in the morning and it's a county or a city vehicle or even a Clark County education vehicle at 1 o'clock in the morning, how's that person driving a vehicle at 1 o'clock in the morning? He's coming from entertainment club or something like that.
Thank you, Mr. Hosea, for your answer.
All right, so with that, we will conclude this interview, panelists. Thank you very much. Candidates, thank you very much. We're going to take a lunch break now.